again, everyone. I'm James Besteman, Marketing Manager for ASCAP, and we'd like to extend a special welcome to this week's sponsor, QoBuz, an HD music streaming service. We are joined by QoBuz USA Managing Director Dan Makta and award-winning producers Michael Beinhorn and Chris Shaw. Dan is going to be taking your questions, so be sure to use the comment box located near your video screen. So tell us, Dan, who cares about audio quality?
Well, great question, James. Funny you should ask. I've prepared a 30-minute presentation on the subject. It's funny, you know, the short answer is more and more people care about audio quality. But you know, we find that even a lot of creators and artists and people who release music don't know a very simple fact, which is that most listening happening on streaming services is highly compressed digital audio. It's not the same as the music that comes out of the studio. There's compression applied, and it's not the same experience that, you know, I don't know, mom and dad or grandma and grandpa got listening to compact discs, even in the 80s and 90s. And it's something that we at QoBuz really take seriously, and we're really pushing to educate everybody in the ecosystem about the very idea of audio quality. So I asked Michael and Chris to join me today because these guys have spent hours and weeks and years in recording studios working with incredible artists to create music that I'm sure many of you are quite familiar with, and they've got a great perspective on what it all means. So first, I'll let each of these guys introduce themselves. Michael, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Michael Beinhorn. I'm a music producer. I guess there isn't a whole lot to say about that. I produced a record by Herbie Hancock called Future Shock. I worked with Soundgarden on their record Super Unknown, Hole, Celebrity Skin, Marilyn Manson, Mechanical Animals, bunch of stuff like that. Also, germane to this conversation, I worked on a record called Untouchables by the band Korn, and to the best of my knowledge, it was the first 96K 24-bit recording that was done for an artist that was doing metal music.
Cool. Not too shabby. Chris?
Hi, my name is Chris Shaw. I'm a recording engineer, producer, and mixer. I started out as a hip-hop engineer. I worked with bands such as Public Enemy, Ice Cube, Run DMC, Tribe Called Quest. After that, I went independent. I've worked with such artists like Weezer, Wilco, Ween. Right now, I literally just finished my third album with Bob Dylan. That'll be coming out next month, I believe. And I've been doing digital audio pretty much since the digital design sound tools days, which was just 2-track editing, and that was back in '94. In fact, when Michael and I first worked together on Soul Silence Grave Dancing, that was the first time I actually used it in a professional setting. So yeah, I'm very deeply familiar with the sound quality and the abilities of digital audio.
Right. Well, how far digital audio has come in 2.5 decades. But the
Absolutely.
sad thing is that the experience that most music fans get through their earbuds at the end of the day doesn't really reflect how amazing the developments and the possibilities of recording have emerged since digital audio, you know, has gotten to the level it's at now. I'll throw this one to you first, Chris. You know, when did you first kind of come to grips with the idea that music fans who, you know, are listening to the stuff that you create with artists in the studio are, for the most part, not hearing the product that was originally delivered? They're hearing this compressed version of it, and what does that mean?
I got aware of it when back in the early 2000s when Napster became a thing, and people were uploading and downloading really horrible quality, 128 kilobit MP3s. I sort of explored Napster just to see what it was all about, and I downloaded a few files and I listened to it, and I was just appalled at what I was hearing, And I mean, MP3 quality has gotten much better now because you can get like a 320 kilobyte stream, which is infinitely better than the original, 128K streams. But even then, the quality just isn't there. I mean, it's not like you lose the experience of hearing a song if you're listening to a low quality uh, digital audio file, but what you're missing is the depth and the immersiveness of the original audio that the engineer and the producer and the artist originally conceived in the studio to be listened to by the artist. I mean, by the audience. So that once I realized that was going to become the standard, I was pretty dismayed. I mean, 16-bit 44.1 digital audio that you get on the CD is actually pretty good, and it's gotten better over the years because converters have gotten better. But when you even compare that to a really high bandwidth, 88.2 or 96K, 24-bit, audio master, the difference is night and day. It's sort of like the difference between watching a VHS and watching Blu-ray disc. It's really obvious. And so much more depth and more emotion. And it's lost in the MP3 process. It just gets stripped away.
It's funny with how important and central music is to people's lives and humanity that it's a lot easier for someone to understand and appreciate and desire video quality than audio quality.
There's that expression where art decorates space and music decorates time. And if I want someone to decorate my time, I want them to use really nice oil paints as opposed to Crayola colors. That's right.
That's great.
Or a fine meal versus fast food.
Exactly. Exactly.
But Michael, how about you? When did the kind of unfortunate element of the ubiquity of music, which is a loss of audio quality, become something you were aware of?
Well, I would say going as far back as 94 when we were mastering this Soundgarden record, and we'd spent so much time recording everything, trying to make it as immaculate as possible, and we weren't even dealing with reduction of quality in audio streaming. We were dealing with things basically going from analog audio down to 1644.1, Red Book standard, and in some cases listening off DATs, that wonderful archaic format. And you could really get a sense of how these presentations were crippling the quality of the audio that you'd invested so much time and effort into, because the way you record a record, you're really trying to evoke a certain emotional quality. It's not, if anyone knows this, it's going to be Chris. Spending so much time engineering records, you're going for specific textures. These textures speak through the music and they help project it to the people that you want to connect with. And that's what we're hearing in a recording studio. We're hearing all these things and we're hearing them as clear as day. Now, when you start clouding the issue and you start making the audio more, more vague, that was a pretty sobering moment. But then starting to hear streamed audio of, 6, 7, 8 years on, and realizing what was being done, the access to music is marvelous. It's wonderful. It's unparalleled in history at this point. But if you don't have the full experience, as Chris was saying before, you're taking so much away from the listeners. And I think, as you've pointed out, listeners literally don't know what they're missing. And to me, that's a travesty.
It's a mockery of a travesty of a sham. The thing that really stands out to me is that as technology has gotten better and better, I think I sort of mentioned it before, audio quality has gotten worse and worse, and the place that we're at now
absolutely
is basically the bottom. You can't make it worse than it's been, and convenience is as convenient as it's ever going to be. And my hope is that there's actually a corner that's somewhat been turned here, because now in 2020, for the first time, storage, digital storage is not as expensive as it was you know, in the past. Bandwidth to deliver digital music over the internet is now, you know, exponentially higher than it was even 10 years ago. And the hardware and things like headphones technology has evolved to such a point that, you know, sound quality and gear capable of really replicating what the artist does in the studio is available to everybody. You don't have to spend $9 gazillion to hear high res music. So what I hope is that it's kind of turned a corner. We're going to start educating people, and soon enough, we'll all be listening to high res music.
It's inevitable. Yeah, it's
yeah.
inevitable because and it comes down to hardware. I mean, I think at this point, it's the computer manufacturers and people who manage storage that are really determining what kind of audio quality we get. And high res, as important as it is to people who make audio and make recordings, it's basically a branding point. It's a selling point. It's a way that people are going to be able to sell computers going forward when they realize that they need some kind of new bell and whistle that they can apply. Fortunately, high-res audio is essential, I think, to the listening experience. So it's going to bring people something that they don't expect and have never experienced before. But it is inevitable.
So there was a question somebody asked here, what does QoBuz do exactly? Is it a distributor or a DSP like Spotify? And just so people are clear, the company that I work for is a music service. It's, you know, similar to Spotify or others, you know, but everything that we stream is in CD quality or higher. So 16-bit, 44.1 kilohertz is CD quality. And then anything that is released in what we call high res 24-bit audio, we stream it in 24-bit up to 192K sampling frequency. And in addition, we've got a download store. So we sell files in those same audio quality and formats, which we think is important because everybody knows that an artist makes more money from a download sale. And there's still plenty of people that like to own their music. So as long as they want to buy it, we want to sell it to them, because that definitely is a way that artists and creators can be supported. So QoBuz is a streaming service, and we really focus on the idea of quality and respect for the people who made the music and respect for the people who are listening to it. We don't dumb it down, and that's kind of where we're coming from. So going back to the guys that actually are there when music is created and help create the music. Yes, Chris, I'll throw this one to you. When we're talking about recording, you know, a lot of the people who are listening are probably artists and creators and people who, you know, make music and record music. Why would someone want to record in 24-bit audio versus 16-bit? I mean, from my understanding, and I'm not a creator, in Pro Tools, there's basically a switch. You set it up as 16-bit or 24-bit. What is the benefit to somebody working in 24-bit?
A real quick, you know, layman's primer on bit rate and sample rate. The sample rate, the higher the sample rate, the more high frequencies you can capture. Okay, so and bit depth is sort of like resolution, and it also relates to pretty much the noise floor. The higher the bit rate you have, the much lower the noise floor can be. A way of visualizing it would be if you were standing on top of a mountain looking at the valley below, you know, at 96K, you can see all the detail all the way down to like the ants crawling along the riverbed at the bottom. When you record at a much lower bit rate, let's say 12-bit or 8-bit, it's sort of like there's a mist of clouds between you and the valley floor. You're not gonna be able to differentiate between the noise and the low-level stuff, right? Because it's sort of all intermeshed together. And the benefit is multiplied all the way across, all the way through the chain. I mean, the higher you're basically future-proofing your art. You know, when you record at higher sample rates and at higher bit depths, you know, you deliver a master to iTunes or whatever music service, or your pressing plant or whatever, and you're delivering a 96K 24-bit file, you're pretty much guaranteed that's going to be pretty much the standard probably for at least the next 20 or 30 years, because human beings can't hear above 24K, and people who can are far and few between. So the lowest sample rate you should be recording at is at 48K. But when you get into production and you're in the studio and you're processing digital audio, higher sample rates result in much cleaner audio, because as you distort things in the digital realm and as you manipulate them, artifacts are created. Frequency is much higher than the human ear can hear, and if you are only at 48K or 44.1, those high artifacts will get folded down into the audible spectrum, and they're not natural sounds. In fact, some of those artifacts will happen below the sound, like frequency-wise, and it just starts to get really noisy and very fatiguing after a while. So the more you can reproduce those higher frequencies that are even farther and above the human ear can hear, the better your final master will sound. And delivering your final master at 96K and 24-bit, like I said before, is pretty much going to be you're future-proofing your audio. Because I think Michael could probably chime in on here if he thinks this is a bigger or a better sample rate and bit depth that will follow. But that pretty much covers this whole spectrum of what human beings can hear and feel.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I mean, the only exception, the only thing I would add is that I think DSD has the potential to be but if we're staying in PCM world, yeah, I think it seems like 96K would be probably the lowest sample rate that you would want to turn music in.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
As a person performing, listening to just using playback, the difference between listening to music when you're recording at, let's say, Redbook at 44.116 versus 96.24 is staggering. Of course, we can sit here and talk about that, and it's very
dancing
difficult.
About architecture.
Dancing about architecture. People need to hear this in order to understand the depth and how much more compelling it is. But as a performer, when you are listening back to music in a recording studio that you're working with, and you hear that kind of depth in your music, then you start to realize what's missing, but that kind of emotional connection that you're not getting from the music that you listen to when it's compressed. And that, as Chris said before, is incredibly. I don't think that it can be underscored enough.
Yep. I was actually on QoBuz today, listening to one of the new Dylan singles I just did that just came out. And that's being between, and the thing is, the more dynamic your music is, like as far as the distance between the level between your quietest sounds and your loudest sounds, sounds so much better at a higher bit depth. And I'm listening to Bob, and we mixed his vocal really loud up in your face, and you can hear the reverb sort of behind his head, behind him, and you can hear all the ripples in the reverb, like it's plain as day. And when I switched the stream over to MP3, it just felt like muddy little. There was something back there, but you couldn't tell if it was reverb or noise or whatever, And it just you literally can just reach out and touch it. That's the only way I can describe it. Like sound has a texture at 96K, whereas at on MP3 it just feels like a ball of clay.
It's the way it should
be. You can't connect. You can't connect with it at all. It's really funny actually. With MP3s, it almost feels like music is kind of like pushing you away. It's impossible to establish that emotional bond that you really want from the music that you're listening to. And by the way, your Dylan record sounds fantastic.
Fantastic. I didn't bring that up for compliments, but yeah, thank you.
That's okay. It had to be said.
But and I also find that when I listen, if I'm streaming, let's say on my Apple TV, and I'm streaming MP3s off a bad streaming service or whatever, I find it gets fatiguing after a while. Whereas when I'm listening to high bandwidth audio, even Redbook audio, it just feels a little more. You don't feel like stressed, for lack of a better word.
Well, we know that in this AirPod Bluetooth world we live in, most people are not really super sensitive about quality. And with the technology that they've got in those new AirPods and a decent source, it ain't bad. It's a lot better than it was, but there is, I believe always going to be a percentage of music listeners, and maybe it's 1% or 5% or half a percent that want to hear stuff in the best possible quality. They care about it enough to know that it's supposed to do something to them, and the quality does matter. So if I'm talking to artists or people out there making music, I would say, why not? Why not record your music in 24-bit, deliver it to your distributor or your label in that format, and everybody can dumb it down from there. It can, why not go to the highest possible quality in the recording and mastering process? You can always dumb it down, but you can't go the other way. You can't go
Exactly.
the other way. So I do want to open it up to questions. I think we've got about 10 minutes left. There've been a few, but if you've got questions, get them in now, and we'll try to answer these. Some of this stuff is extraordinarily technical, not extraordinarily technical, but these are real creators making their music, doing home recording. Here's a question. If streaming services apply gain and compression to everything they play, what is the ideal amount of headroom a mastered track should have? I will say not all streaming services apply gain and compression. QoBuz doesn't. QoBuz, because audiophiles and people who really care about audio quality use our service, what we get from the record company is what we stream. But I will say that the mainstream services do. I mean, I don't think it's nefarious. They do it because they think that's what makes the music sound better. So I've heard that, you got to keep that stuff in mind. What do you think, Michael? You wish you didn't.
If it's digital, like it's better if it's not messed with. That's my feeling about it. And as far as headroom, I think if someone's recording a piece of music, that they need to go as far as they can. Probably, if they're metering in terms of, I don't look in terms of dB, but in terms of green to to yellow to red, I say go as far as you possibly can, just not clip. Yeah,
exactly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, it's okay.
I don't worry about that stuff personally. I mix to, I think, where the file sounds good. I don't know how much compression the streaming services add. I mean, as far as I'm talking like audio compression, not data compression, but I do know that at the very least they're going to analyze your track. They're going to get what they call a LUFS value out of it, and they're going to change the gain so that everything coming out of the stream service sounds exactly the same. All I can say is that the more dynamics you have in your music, and the more your songs are going to pop out, because they're going to be able to push them louder. But as a creative person, I pay little attention to that. Occasionally I'll look over just to make sure, like I'm not like completely pinning my mix. There's only like 5 dB of dynamic range or something like that. But I mean, if it's sounding good to you, then it's sounding good. Let the streaming services will take care of the levels for you. Whereas QoBuz doesn't do anything to it.
We don't do it, although we have analyzed all of recorded music for those values, because some of the third parties that use our service have volume normalization selections. Right. And a future version of the app. Regular people like volume normalization because they don't want their playlists to go like this, but audiophiles hate anything done to the file. So I want to thank Jay Nestor for that great question. We've got a few minutes left. I've got a question from Martin Chiesi. Since most regular old people can't afford high-end studio monitors, what type of speakers do you recommend? I mean, I think there's some extremely great hardware that's very affordable in terms of monitors or powered speakers these days. Do you guys have any recommendations for entry level or affordable stuff?
I personally can't make recommendations because I own my own studio. I have $5,000 monitors in my studio, and that's also where I listen to music on too. Like when I want to listen to a record intensely and be immersive about it, I call my home studio and I just listen. But most speakers these days, every time I've gone to a hi-fi store, I've been blown away with like how good the quality is, even at low to mid, budget, speakers. I just say, go to a store with a CD or a, music file or a thumb drive and audition, and whichever speakers, make you feel good about the music you listen to. Those are the ones you go with.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I'm not even listening on monitors at this point. All the work I do is with headphones. So I've got a DAC running out of a computer with a bunch of sets of headphones, and that's pretty much how I do everything now.
Right. Yeah, but I would say at the very least, upgrade your Apple earbuds to something, that's better quality. Even like
Oh yeah.
I just ordered the Apple Pro earbuds. I haven't heard them yet, but everybody I've talked to says they sound great. It's and like anything else, you get used to what things sound like, and then
I've got a pair of powered speakers on my desktop from SVS. They're SVS Prime Wireless. Great powered speakers. I think they're $500 for the pair. If you're looking for an easy way to get into high res and lossless music streaming, you buy those speakers. It comes with an app. QoBuz and other services are right in the app, and you don't need anything else to hear some pretty astounding quality.
I think those JBL waveguide speakers are actually pretty good too, and I'm pretty sure that the small ones are well under $1,000 for a pair. I mean, they're very good powered monitors.
Let's see. Here's a question from Howard. What do I need to do in my music studio to go from 96 to 192? He wants the higher rate for archiving his music and submitting his music. I mean, we do get some music, mostly classical, that comes in 24 192 in terms of the sampling rate. I mean, what?
I think 192 is like if you're recording multi-track audio and you're doing songs, I think 192 is overkill. You're taxing your computer way too much. Places where 192 excels those in sound design. If you work on film, and you got some really incredibly expensive microphones to record things, when you slow things down, like the half speed or quarter speed, all those upper end frequencies, come down an octave, then another octave, and they still sound really crystal clear. I would only use 192 if I were an artist who had a backlog of analog tapes, previous masters to archive them, just for 2-track and stuff like that. Or if you're a purist recording jazz and you're doing everything to 8-track, and you're just putting up microphones with very little EQ, and you're not going to be processing the audio whatsoever. It's just going to be playback. 192 is beautiful for that, but I think it's overkill, personally. I mean, Michael,
here's an amazing digital transfer on QoBuz. It's an Illinois Jaquette album. Now I can't remember the name of the album, but it's got a version of Harlem Nocturne on it. It's recorded, in the 50s. It's mono. There's no compression. It's a great digital transfer, 24 192. You put this thing on, you feel like you're in Illinois Jaquette's mouth when he's playing the saxophone. It is so good. And that's the other thing that, is really great when there's some care and, love put into digital remasters, and the ones that are done right these days really can allow a fan to hear music, like they've never heard it before. I thought I was familiar with Abbey Road. I heard 9 million things that I never. Of course, it was remixed. Okay, but even so, there's so much joy that a music fan can get out of music that is recorded or preserved with quality as a priority.
Yeah, and as you're saying, as you said before, the technology exists to make things sound in extraordinary. I mean, I actually, with my playback system, I have an upsampler that will take Redbook to like 705 and a 24-bit, and which is really, really useful if I'm remote producing a project and I happen to be and the project is being streamed. I mean, I agree with Chris as far as like how much stress 192 is going to put on your computer. In some cases, it might be the right thing to do and it depends really how it sounds to you. Some people I think aren't going to hear any difference between 96 and 192 at all. And someone may hear 192 and go, oh God, that's it. I'll do anything to record at that sampling frequency.
We're almost done. I guess we got just a minute or so left if there's any last questions. I'm looking through the questions to see if there's anything else that would really be relevant for everybody. Some Some of these questions are a little bit off topic and very specific. So we'll move off from the questions and we'll go to final words. How's that? Chris, you want to give us a final 15 seconds? You're
Oh
on.
God, just do everything at the highest resolution possible. At the very, very least, deliver your master or print your master at a higher bit depth and a higher sampling rate to deliver. And I'm talking about actually mixing to that medium as opposed to printing a Redbook 1644-1 and then upscaling and delivering that. I mean, mixing internally in the box at a higher sampling rate is the way to go. I mean, without question,
Michael, you concur.
All I can say to that is ditto. But what I would add is listen to everything. Don't let people sell you stuff. Use your ears and really get into the experience of music. Look for the feeling that it gives you. Don't just look for, being able to hear notes accurately, because if absent that, you're missing like a large part of the story.
So I guess I'll just keep talking till they cut me off. If you are interested in hearing lossless and or high-res music and you've never heard it before and only heard MP3, QoBuz has a free trial. QoBuz, QoBuz.com. Give it a try and listen to some of your favorite music, and I think you'll be pretty pleased with what you hear. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and really thank Michael and Chris for giving their time today and sharing some of this wisdom. These guys have really educated me a little bit today, so I hope everybody got something out of it.
Thank you so much, Dan, and thank you guys for joining in, and to everyone at QoBuz for sponsoring this week's event.